trying to create that pedestrian experience in this square. So you'll kind of see that as we continue walking. So, huge development right there. We do also have Lemoyne came down here a few years ago, so bringing a lot of students and kind of a younger population. So, you get a lot of the empty nesters that are in the apartments, the students, a lot of, new young professionals that are living. And if you look around and see some of the businesses that have filled in here, really stable around the square right here where there's some nice green space. But as we walk this way, we're going to see how some of the development has kind of transitioned east. This has always been a really great spot, a lot of pedestrian activity, tons of retail establishments, and we're going to see where that development has kind of, people are using this space, and that is now transitioning down the block a little bit, and we're seeing a lot more activity. But there are a lot of public events that happen here during the summer. We've had concerts, the Northeast Jazz and Wine Festival that happens in Clinton Square, kind of is over here with the Blue Ray Eco Fest. So a really great space for folks to just come, hang out, enjoy the beautiful fountain, and enjoy Hanover Square, which is kind of one of the most quieter but quaint neighborhoods, and we're definitely seeing a lot more activity happen here. Wanted to point out the residential activity. We're going to keep going down the street, but as we go down this way, we'll point out there's a lot more retail and a lot of vacant buildings that have been converted to apartments and then ground floor retail space. So there's a lot more investment in this neighborhood, and they're seeing a lot more happen right around here, especially in a residential sense.
There's been a lot of change only in the time that I've been here, so I can imagine there's even more momentum happening over the next several years. As you can see, like the State Tower building's still under construction. There's a ton happening just here in Hanover Square. So we picked this location because we wanted to be part of that movement, that growth, the energy that's been moving into downtown. There's been a lot more mixed-use buildings, so a lot more residents moving downtown, and to us, like the Corner Bakery is kind of a part of that culture, that community.
You can kind of see the transformation in this block. Just think about all those buildings over there being vacant before. So kind of looking at this side of the block over here versus this side, we're slowly seeing that change, residents move in.
I hope that when all is said and done, that's still here. We can go there for breakfast. So it's, how do you maintain the character of the place and the things that make it unique? There's only one of those. I mean, that really is, it's great to see it still here.
And I'm sure many of you were familiar with the history, but when they were laying out the Interstate System 81 and 690, this building was set to be demolished, and through the work of some local civic-minded folks and preservationists, it obviously wasn't. And we're having similar discussions today about the future of 81 and our civic infrastructure in general downtown. But this is a museum. It's one of the biggest tourist draws in downtown. Celebrating our history.
Boats that were using the canal, which was Erie Boulevard, right out there, would come in, the gates would open, the boat would come in, the water in the lock would be drained out through a hole in the bottom, the boat would be lowered onto a giant wooden cradle, which is the term they use, that was attached to a scale that was inside the building.
Wasn't there a train station down the square?
Did you have some questions about the next phase of the creek wall? I'm working on that.
We've come to a sort of a junction point here where, just a few blocks ago we were in historic and lovely Hanover Square, human scale, pedestrian friendly, very walkable, and as you saw very quickly it transitions into an ambiguous space, sort of a no man's land. So there will be investments made, there will be improved crossings, there will be sidewalks, there will be improvements to the bike lanes. However, there is a distinction in this space when you compare it to where we just were. And I don't know if you can tell, but some of that may very well due to what we have behind me, which you're all looking at, which is the overpasses here, the junction of 81 and 690. Erie canal was on Erie Boulevard. For those of you who are paying attention, there will be a quiz. The Empire State Trail will utilize Water Street.
Until Water Street ends?
Yes.
Will it be between the existing curbs, or will there be?
So the trail will encompass a few things. Improvements to the bike lanes, which are on street. Improvements to the sidewalks and other pedestrian infrastructure like crossings at the signalized intersections, some signage, trailblazers, other things like that. We're speaking with New York State DOT about seating and very basic lighting amenities. So this isn't going to be a $100 million investment. However, we are talking about tens of millions of dollars specifically for pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, which is a dollar amount that we really haven't seen committed by the state ever.
Is there a specific reason why they chose Water Street over Erie Boulevard for this section?
So there's a good reason why the state chose Water Street over Erie Boulevard for this portion of the trail, and that's the nature of the street. Water Street sees a significantly lower volume of traffic. The speeds are lower as well as the fact that Water Street has existing bike lanes. The state wanted to capitalize on the investments that the city's already made and bolster that.
But this is now the Central New York Community Foundation, I believe, purchased this building and then turned it into the Philanthropy Center. And so there are several nonprofits that have offices here, and they also have a large meeting space up on the second floor, which is available for use. It fits in with its environment in a kind of very natural way, and so it shows how you can retrofit a building so that it is universally accessible.
The connective corridor was established along this corridor and built a few years ago, and that's a project that was a collaboration between the city of Syracuse, Syracuse University, Onondaga County, and New York State to connect University Hill with downtown. The two really job centers of this region, the economic engines of this region, that are bisected by 81. And obviously there are connections, Fayette Street, Washington Street, up and down the grid here, but create a more visible connection, a safer connection between these two areas. Over about 10 years ago, the university sponsored a design competition. A designer was selected, and really their charge was to create a physical connection between the hill and downtown, and do so using innovative and easily identifiable features in the streetscape. And so we're standing on some of that now. I mean, that included new sidewalks, not only on this side, but on that side in front of Fayette Park. The use of pavers, the use of pedestrian scale lighting that you see here in red, the easily identifiable bike lane.
This is the last stop on our tour, Warren Street, and Owen and Bethany are going to talk a little bit about what's been happening on Warren Street over the last several years.
So Warren Street has seen a lot of improvement over the past few years. It used to be a little bit of a scary place at times on Warren Street. And a lot of that, you'll see the old Excellus building, this really tall building right here. Now it's Icon Tower. There are apartments in there, a lot of office space, a great Italian restaurant if you haven't checked out Amano. And Warren Street has definitely seen a lot of activity because of that, and even before that, because of things that are happening at the Tech Garden. It's kind of become a technology corridor, especially down that end. We've got the Genius New York program that's investing millions of dollars into central New York with tech companies, particularly in the drone industries and things like that. So we've seen a lot of investment in technology companies and startups, especially with TCG Player going in the galleries. So a lot of new office tenants down here, and again, same trend. People are starting to build those apartments in those buildings, building up and increasing the density.
I've been in town like our friend from the bakery for about 10 years. And when I came, many of the storefronts along this corridor were vacant. And really, if you look around, there's really not a whole lot of vacancy on Warren Street any longer. And a lot of that is residential development, as Bethany mentioned, upstairs at Merchants Commons, Icon Tower. You know, those residential tenants are helping, you know, a lot of the improvements that we're seeing along the streetscape.
The very basics of urban street design are often overlooked, but they're often very simple. And you're looking at a really good example right now. I mean, sidewalks with plenty of space, not just 5 feet wide because somebody says what dimension they should be. Buildings that on both sides of the street give you a sense of enclosure and a proportion to the width of the street and the sidewalk. Street trees that form that edge between us and the adjacent traffic. The quality of some of the facades here, I mean the colonnade directly in front of us. There was a time when we really put a tremendous amount of thought into just those simple things, and it makes the difference between average streets, decent streets, and truly great streets.
One of the things that I like about Warren Street is because on these 3 blocks, it's an intact collection of 20th century architecture from 1900 to 1980. There's a wonderful collection, and it's almost entirely intact, very eclectic. It's wonderful.
It looks great.